Please.
Well, I was interested, having worked in the military myself. What are the kind of barriers to actually? What are the barriers to actually getting in and consulting for the military on this?
Well, you clearly don't have to be that bright, because I've been doing it for 3 years reasonably successfully. So I think there are opportunities out there. I mean, there are pots of money out there that you can. So the Centre for Defence Enterprise is something that funds low TRL ideas that are risky. So there are options for funding if you want to build something and you want to sell it to the military, and I think that's quite interesting in exploring. In terms of the consulting, it's very difficult for little guys like myself and anybody else in here who's interested in that. Generally, you find yourself having to go in as an associate to one of the big guys, just because this stuff tends to be, because it's very expensive. They feel like and it's taxpayers' money. They feel like they need some guarantees. Whether that's right or wrong, I'll talk about afterwards, perhaps, but not on camera. Because that's where I make my living. So I think there are pots of money out there in the military, and there are certain frameworks out there that if you can get yourself signed up to, that there are options there. So if you want to have a chat about that, that'd be great if anybody does. Does that answer your question at all?
Yeah. Okay, yeah.
Cool. Hi.
I'm not so sure about the dichotomy between remote and autonomous, because actually I think that there'll be a bit of autonomy in the remote applications, let's say in agriculture, and the autonomy. I mean, just defining that. I think you put those two words out there, but then defining those two categories precisely is not evident. I mean, it's not evident to myself. Maybe it's evident to others over here, but I don't know if you could elaborate.
Yeah, well, I think that's right. And I guess in hindsight, I've been looking. A lot of the work I've been looking at is out sort of 15, 20 years time, and so where we perhaps have some clearer ideas about what remote and autonomous might mean. So as things become smarter, as we get hard AI, maybe that's a lot more autonomous. And I think the thing that I'm really interested in, it's a really good point actually, and the thing I didn't talk about, which is the thing I have been talking about a lot for the last year, is it's all about the allocation of decision rights. So so where do we allocate the decision rights, and where do we allocate it to a machine? Do we allocate them all to a machine? Where does the human start and stop adding value in a system? And I think you're 100% right that this is not necessarily a dichotomy. Maybe it's some kind of continuum, and I think there is a lot of work to be done in there, and working out what is autonomous, what is remote, where does a human add value in the system, and I suspect that the answer is all about where you allocate decision rights. So this fantastic thing here, for example, you program in where it's going, but then you leave the decision rights as to when to turn to it and the satellite that it's communicating with. Now that might, and clearly in this circumstance that works. Well, is there a circumstance where that wouldn't work? What's the threshold for allocating a decision to this and a satellite or any kind of agent? So I think you've hit on something really interesting there that I haven't explained very well in my presentation. Is that you're right, it's not a dichotomy, it's some kind of continuum, and what that looks like I don't know at the moment, and I think there's more work to be done. Does that answer your question?
Yeah, I think you're right. I mean, it's something we'll probably see in 15 years.
Yeah, thanks, cheers, that helped. Yeah, sure.
Just a thought about your what do you call it, recombinant technologies. Did you think also of actually the fact that these things develop because they're there? So if you have a drone which can take a sensor, then maybe someone will develop a sensor for that. So did you think of this as well? Did you try?
Yeah.
Because that's actually an important part. If you don't have a horse, you're not going to develop a cart. But if someone builds a cart, you might actually start breeding horses to draw it. That kind of thing. That's also an important part of the development, isn't it?
Yeah, and I guess I would probably see that as some kind of recombinance. The fact that you are, something's there, and so you suddenly go, oh, actually, I can put that with it. I didn't think those two would go together, and so I don't think that. Again, I don't think they're necessarily mutually exclusive. I think they're probably part of the whole same continuum. The recombining of technologies is really interesting. I guess the point I was trying to make was that I don't see much more. I see fewer options, and the guys who talk about it in that book, the second machine age. You know, there's this idea that we're unlikely to see a completely revolutionary new thing, but what we are likely to see is something revolutionary from combining lots of different things. Now, all of those probably will exist already, and so you're putting stuff together. So it's probably some kind of continuation between the two. You can come back on me if you want.
I think one more question.
Sure. Sorry.
Curious to know in this world of very mass big data, very mass machine learning data, particularly the cloud swarm that you showed, what is the risk or perception of hacking into these command and control centres that guide these things? Not necessarily obvious ways, I'm thinking more subtle ways where the underlying model through nefarious means of one form or another is very subtly changed.
Yeah.
In the same way that the LIBOR index was rather gently massaged by Beyond Banks and a half heard rumours that this was almost accidental because people in one particular bank didn't even know what they were doing, sending financial reports in their own dailies. This is how the LIBOR index got into a mess. So the machine models, the machine learning models could get into a mess, and as the mathematics involved in these things, it's at a very, very high level. Very few people, even trained mathematicians, are going to be able to quickly grasp the modern concepts and be able to have an eye for detecting the errors. That's something that I kind of see as quite worrying.
And that was something that came up when I was at Oxford the other week. You know, that was because it was all about the ethics of warfare, and actually, if you're getting machines to do more, what are the chances of them being corrupted? So my answer to that was, well, and we go back to the idea of allocating decision rights rather than letting machines do it rather than humans, because we currently allocate decision rights to fallible things all the time, things that are hacked ideologically, things that go wrong, things that don't understand and make mistakes. We do that all the time, and we've always done that. They're called humans. So and so I think there's this quite interesting, and it perhaps is a dichotomy, saying there must always be a human in the loop. We can't let a machine decide this. It's too, if the stakes are so high, we can never let a machine decide this. And I kind of roll that back, and you know that maybe pragmatism has its own ethics, in that you should allocate the decision right to the thing that's most capable of making that decision. Now, whatever that is, whether that's a machine or a person, it has the potential to be subverted. So I don't necessarily think that it's a problem giving stuff to machines because it could be subverted. Well, humans are subverted all of the time, so I'm not sure it's the question. I think it's a question, and I think that the real question is, where should we allocate decision rights, and where do humans start and stop adding value in any system? It's probably slightly off the drone question. But I think, as you know, when we talk about recombining technologies, big data and drones are going to crash together at some point in the very near future. So those are the kind of questions that I think will need to be answered there. But yeah, I don't think that's the question. I think the question is, where do we allocate decision rights?
Okay, I think we'll leave that. We're actually doing a Q&A panel at the end.